today we will start with the new topic, and that is the handling of files. In any programming language, you are expected to read and write from some file. So PHP is not an exception on that. PHP also provides you with a number of functions which are built-in functions that help you to read and write to a file. Because the PHP is derived from that C programming language, it has almost all functions which are there in the C, and their working is same as that of the C programming language. Now, if you look at the usual thing, that what you do with a file is you try to open a file, you read the content of the file, you display it to the user, or you write back to the file, and at the end of the day you just close the file. So this is the usual step that we are following. Now let's look at how the PHP handles the file. When we talk about the PHP, from the version 4.3 onwards, they introduced a common way of accessing the resources in the form of a stream. Now stream is a general concept that they have used in order to get something from various places. Now when I say get something, I may get it from a file, I may get it from a network, or I may get it from some other services which are running. If I am able to get it like a stream is nothing but a continuous flow. If I am able to get something in the form of a continuous flow, it is considered to be a stream. So stream is a generalized way of reading from a file or from a network, or even if suppose if you are compressing and then sending it out, that is also called as a stream. It's a common functionality that is being provided. In a simplest way, stream is nothing but a resource from which you can get something out. So what's the meaning of it is you can take any resource for that matter. It could be a file, it could be a network, it could be a web service, it could be anything. If you are able to get a continuous flow of bytes out of it, this is what is called as a stream. So when I say that I have to handle a file, or I have to handle a network socket or anything for that matter, I am just referring to a stream. So stream means something that flows out from a resource. Okay. The other use of the stream is when the stream is coming out of the network, I can point and say that I want only this part, or I want to start reading from here, not from the beginning. In other words, I can move between the content which is streamed out from a resource. Apart from this stream, we use one other word called as a wrapper. So wrapper is a container that wraps up the stream. Now this is the set of, it's like a protocol that says how to handle this particular stream. For example, a stream, in a general word, a stream is something that is flowing out. Now what flows out could be a network resource. For example, a HTTP file is coming out. Now how do you read this HTTP file into your program? You put a wrapper across this and then access it. Even though you may get a TCP/IP packet from the network, but you may say that I want to read it like a HTTP packet. So in other words, the stream is coming like a TCP/IP. You put a wrapper and then you take something out. It's like you try to put a filter and say that only this part has to come, or you try to manipulate and say that only different type of content has to come out. Okay. Now, by default, PHP has many wrappers which are already built into it. If the wrappers are not there, you can either create your own wrapper, or you can get a third-party wrapper and register it with the PHP, and PHP will be happy to use that. Now, how do I access a stream? The general way of accessing stream is you specify the scheme followed by a colon and then the wrapper. So scheme, colon, and a wrapper. So this stream could be anything. For example, it could be a FTP, it could be a zip file, it could be HTTP, HTTPS, or anything, or it could be even a file for that matter. So that's the string. The wrapper is something that you want to do it. Suppose if you want to say, I want to compress the content, then the wrapper will be something else. In a general scenario, whenever we use a file system, the wrapper is actually the name and the path of the file, the physical path of the file. If it is a network resource that you are trying to access, then it could be a host name from where you are getting the resources. A general way of accessing it. I will talk about this function slightly later. So file is a scheme followed by the 2:, and specify the path. So this is if you are accessing the path. In general, we don't try to specify the file because file is assumed to be a default one, and whenever we try to access a file, we just specify the name of the file. That is enough. The rest part is automatically assumed. However, it will not assume the other one. Like if at all you want to get a string from the Google, then you can say HTTP. I want the string to be HTTP. In other words, the string I want it to be HTTP, and I want to access something from that resource. So like google.com or something else. So in other words, you can. It's not just reading from a file. You can read it from any other resources. Let's look at the other two concepts which are useful whenever we when we use the files. One is the handle. Handle is nothing but it represents a resource. So whenever you open a file in your system for reading or writing, you are given a handle. So handle is nothing but a reference to the resource. It's kind of a variable, but it has a special meaning. That is used to access the file. So when you want to read from a file, you open the file. You are given a handle to the file. You do anything with the file using this handle. Once everything is over, you close this handle. The file will be automatically closed. Next one is a file pointer, which you are familiar from your C programming language. File pointer is an internal pointer that is used to point within a location of the file. So how do I use the file? Which are the methods or which are the functions which are available in order to use, which can be used in a program? So let me go over here and let me close all these things, and I'm going to start a new project. I'll have it here, and I'm going to make it as a ordinary project, not a web project. See the content. It is taking a long time. Let's continue with the presentation. So we have a method called as fopen, which is the same function that we have already used in your C programming language. Fopen is used to open a file. You specify the name of the file. You specify the mode in which you want to open the file. What is written back to you is a file handler. So you use that file handler to either read from the file or write to a file or do anything. This mode will decide how you want to open the file. So like the other programming language, we have a number of modes, and when you try to open a file, if it is not possible for the fopen to open a file, it returns a 0, which is a Boolean false. So when you try to open a file, you can just check whether the file open was successful. If the return result is a false, it means you are unsuccessful in opening the file. As usual, like a C programming language, you have the various modes in which you can open a file. The one is the read mode. In the read mode, you are only reading the file. So the file is open and the internal pointer will be pointing to the first location within the file. So this is what happens when you try to open a file. So if you assume that this is a file, the content of the file, when you open this file in the read mode or read plus mode, the file pointer will be pointing to the first location. This is the internal pointer, first location within the file. Let me go back to the other one. What is R plus? Now R plus, it is the plus indicates the other way around. You know very well that R is for reading R plus means it is given for writing. So W for reading, W for writing, W plus for reading. So plus is the other way around. So when I say R, the difference between R and R plus is R is meant only for reading, whereas R plus is reading plus writing. So W is meant only for writing, W plus is for reading as well as writing. So when you put this plus, it just means to say that it's the other way around. Okay. So when you use this R as a mode, the file will be opened in the read only mode and you will not be able to write it. If you want to write it, then either you can go for R plus or W plus. Okay. The difference between the reading and the W and W plus is when you try to open it in the W mode, you are already familiar, the existing content will be truncated. That means it will delete all the contents which are there in the file and then it will start writing into it. If the file does not exist, it's going to create it. So you must be very careful when you use the W. When you use the W, if the file already exists, it will be truncated first and then it's going to go ahead. Identical to the C programming language, we have A and A plus, and A is for appending at the end of the file. A plus is the same thing, reading and writing, but only thing is if the file does not exist, it's going to attempt and create it. In both the cases, it's going to do that. Then we have X and X plus, which may be slightly different. So X plus is X is meant only for writing. You cannot read. Okay. However, there is a slight difference. If the file already exists, then if you use the X mode, the mode will fail. So it is meant for creating a brand new file. If the file already is there, it will stop and say that I will not proceed ahead with it. Okay. This X plus is meant for both reading and writing, and it has the same significance. So if you do not want to, or if you want to check whether the file exists, and if the file exists, you don't want to truncate and do something with it, you can just use the X mode. Then we have the C mode. It is C and C plus. C is for writing only. Okay. Only difference is if the file does not exist, it just creates it. Unlike the X plus mode, if the file already exists, it will fail. Whereas C, if the file exists, it is going to use it. If it is not there, it's going to create it. However, you must be careful with it. When you use the C++, if the file does not exist, it's going to create it. If it exists, it is not truncated. That is a small difference. Let's go ahead and let's do some work on it. So I have a file. I want a file here. So let me assume that I want to use a file. So I'm going to create a file here. In order to create an ordinary file, you go to Other and then select a file name. Let's say empty file. And you give it a name. Let's say, then I'm going to say so I have some students here, and if you notice that file and this file and the other file is there on the same location within the same folder. So how do I access it? Now, first thing I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to get a handle for the file. So I'm going to say f open, and I specify the file name. In my case, I'm going to say the file name happens to be students.txt, and you specify the mode. Suppose say I want to read it, so I'm going to just say this is as simple as that. You are able to read it. Now, if you find that if it is there, if the handle is there, then you are going to say, let's say echo. By the way, you have this function. If you're not seen that thing, you have this function that you're all using it in the C programming language. This is there. This function as it is there. So that's the ordinary printer. So if I just run this one, I'm going to get one among the two. So file is open. Now this file is opened, and at the end, what you are supposed to do, like all the other program, you are going to say close this file. So you are going to say file. If you look at if you type this file, you have a lot of this one. Close, and you specify the handle. The file that was opened here, and it will be closed. So nothing is going to happen after this. The file handle is closed. As simple as that. You can say R plus, or you can do anything. So let me just highlight it. I will just copy it so that I won't make changes. What will happen if I open it in the write mode and then try to run it? So if I go here, you notice that I have not deleted it. It is actually physically deleted. So NetBeans says that it was there, and it is not there. Since I copied it into the clipboard, I'm going to paste it back so that I won't rewrite it. So you can try them. What is going to happen if you try to use the various modes in which you try to open it? Fine. So here, one example wherein I try to open a file, some file, and one is in the read mode, the other one is the write mode. Be careful with the write mode. Whenever you try to open it in the write mode, existing contents are lost, and you will end up in the trouble. So if you are opening it in the read mode, that means to say that the file pointer is here. It's going to start from here. Write mode also, it's going to start from here. In the append mode, append is to add at the end. So if you open it in the append mode, the file pointer will be here at the end of the file. So whatever you write will come here. Whereas in the read and as well as the write mode, it's going to start from the beginning. Whereas in the append mode, existing content will be there, and you are going to add something to those content. Here is one other example wherein I try to open the file. If the file does not exist, I just exit out of the PHP by giving a warning message. So I say file, open it. If you're not able to open the welcome.txt, it just seems to say that I don't want to proceed with it. So I use the exit here and then display a message and then exit out of the PHP. To close it, it's very simple. The file that you open, you use the close to close it. Now, this is the other function that you have already used in your C programming language, and that is the end of the file. It is used to check whether you have reached the end of the file. What's the meaning of saying end of the file is any file will have an internal pointer, and the internal pointer will be there right at this place. As you start reading or writing, this internal pointer will reach, and if it reaches to the end of the file here, and if you call the end of file function, it's going to say that it is true. So I can check whether I have reached to the end of the file or is it not reached. So I can go over here and I'm going to change my mode, and I will try to make it as a read here. And if I go over here and if I check like this, if file end of file of this handle, then I can say I'm there at the end of the file. I'm going to say echo. You can use the other one. You are at the end of the file. Else So if you try, you will get this one. I am supposed to put a slash n here. I think get that thing. It's already there. If you are not in the reading, definitely you will not do it. I'm not going to try it with the write mode because you know very well what's going to happen if I try to. The next one is gets and fgets and fread. Both are same like your C programming language. It's not a different thing. Fgets is used to read a line at a time, whereas fread is used to read a certain bytes within the file. So if you want to read it like a chunk of characters, you can use the fread. So let's handle that one thing. How do I use it? Fgets in the program. We never try to do this kind of programming in real life. So in real life, after opening a file, you may go over here and then say file is opened, and I will just put /n here because if the file is not opened, I cannot do anything. I will usually use a while loop, and I'm going to say while f end of file dollar handle. This is not there. End of file of this. It just means to say that until you reach the end of the file, you start reading this content. So I'm going to say read a line. So I'm going to say read a line from the handle. Now what's it going to do? It's going to read this one line and it's going to move the pointer to the next line. And whatever it has read, I am going to just echo it out with a /n so that it will come in one line. So I open the file here. If I'm able to open it, I go here and check whether it has reached the end of the file. And if it has reached, it's not showing me. Let me see what is the output. And if I run this one, if everything goes fine, if there is no error, you must be able to get. Let's get that function here. End of file. I think I'm going to say while not end of file because until you don't reach to the end of the file, that in itself will be false. If I right at the beginning, if I call it and say that is it the end of the file, it says no, it is not, and the while loop breaks altogether. So I just put this not here to just make it work. So while not the end of the file, I'm just saying that you read the content, and you notice that I have put an extra space here. And it has there are two spaces over here. What's the reason? When you are reading, it's going to read it like a line, and that end of line will be there. Now, if I just say read it directly, and if I run it, it's going to come in this order. The reason is in the file, the end of file is there. Here, even though you don't see that, the enter is there. If you open it in a ordinary ASCII text file, you will see a end of file marker here. So you're going to see a marker that is you're already familiar. This marker, that end of file marker, will be there almost after every line because I've typed the enter symbol there. It's there. That's the reason when it is reading a line, it just showed me everything in one line. Okay. How do I use the fread then? In order to use the fread, I am going to say fread. And I'm supposed to specify the bytes that I'm supposed to read. Let's say I'm going to say I want to read 20 bytes at a time. So fread 20 bytes at a time and then show it. So let me run it now and let's say what is the effect. And you notice it has done this one. Let me say I'm going to read only 5 bytes at a time, or say 3 bytes. How is it going to appear? So if I just run it, it's going to appear in the proper way. But if I put purposely, if I put a /n here, that means to say that after reading 3 characters, go to the next line. In the output, go to the next line. Read the 3 character, go to the next line in the output. So how is it going to appear? You notice that right at the beginning, it read 3 characters. That was the Mahesh there, and it read 3 characters. And after that, I'm saying that go to the next line. After that, it read 3 characters. Then you have the carriage written and line failed. So it read that thing, and it read yes. There is some other characters. That is the new line character. So it started reading that new line character and so on and so forth. Every time it's trying to read 3 characters, and it goes here. But one thing you must notice that once it reaches to the end of the file, when it is reading 3 characters, suppose that if it after reading 2 characters, end of file is there, so it starts reading, and after reading say 2 characters, the end of file is there. It will not go beyond the end of file. It tries to read 3 characters. If the end of file occurs, in this case 3, or if you want to say 30 characters, so in this case it's going to read 30 characters. If before reading the 30 characters, if there is an end of file marker, then it will not read anything after the end of file. So in other words, it will try to read 30 characters or read until the end of file. So before 30 characters, the end of file is read, it will stop there, and then it will return a false to the end of file marker here to your while loop, and this F here is going to return a true statement once you pass the end of file, and your while loop is going to break there. So let's go ahead and let's look at the other functions. These are the examples. I'm not going to waste my time over here. So I'm trying to read a file, and this is one other function, that is NL to BR. Now, suppose if you are reading a file and if you run it on the browser, if you show this output on the browser, you have already seen the /n that you are adding, new line, the browser will not honor this request. So here when you say /n, the ordinary output will take you, it will skip one line, but for the browser you need BR. So if you are showing it on a browser, that is on a web page, in order to go to the next line, there is a tag BR. Now how do I add that tag BR? There is a simple function that you can think of using, and this simple function is NL new line to BR. What is it going to do is, this function is going to convert the new line into BR. So every new line, it's going to convert it into BR. I'm going to use this one, that is F gets, so that I read one line at a time. So I'm going to just change this function, F gets. So that I'm reading one line at a time. So once one line is read, you notice here, once one line is read, it's going to go to the next line. So let me go over here and run it again. You notice the evaluated that function. You notice that here within your page, there is this new line is there. In your, I press the enter here, that new line will be converted into BR. So it will automatically add BR. So if you want to show it directly onto the browser, that's a very handy function. And you notice at the last here, there is no BR, because at the end after Naresh, there is this end of characters. That end of file character will not be converted into BR. So this function is used to add BR. So the name itself says it will convert the new line character into a BR character. So let's go back to the other example. Now you have this file over here. Let's assume that you have a file which is comma separated, and if I want to get it, read it and show it like an array, this is what we are doing. Now I've given you an example called as explore. This is a built-in function for an array. What the explode will do is it will take a string and it will create a array out of it using a delimiter. So if you have a delimiter, you can do that thing. Let me go over here and let me add a few details to the data that I have it here. So I'm going to say Mahesh, and let's say MSC. So this is a comma separated values. Second sim. Then I'm going to say MC, fourth sim, PGDCA. And let's say so what I have here is a comma separated values, so usually called as CSVs. Now I want to read them and I want to show them. Now before doing anything, I'm just going to run this particular application without doing anything, the previous output. You will notice that it's going to read one line at a time, and at the end, because I use the NL to BR here, you will notice that it's going to add a BR at this one. Now, what if I want to get it like I want to read it and then put it inside how do I go about it? Now, once you read a line from here, I will not use this one, let it read the full line. Once you read a line from it, you can put it inside an array. How do I do that thing? You say array, and there is this built-in function called as explode. You specify the delimiter. In my case, the delimiter that I have used to separate one value from the other value is this comma. So I'm going to say here that the delimiter is comma and the character is the values are there within this line variable. Now it's going to be an array there, so I'm not going to echo it out, and I'm going to use the print R, and I'm going to say print this array for me. So what I'm doing now is I read a line, I convert it into an array, and in the array individual values are separated based on this separator, that is the comma separator. So I'm going to do that thing, and then I'm going to just run this application. Let's say what's the output of it. You notice that it is reading one line, it reads one line here and then converts that line into a array. So Mahesh, then there is a delimiter, comma separation is there. So it takes the first one, Mahesh, then that comma was there, that it is taking as the second value, then one more comma was there, that it is taking as the third value. So you can use any delimiter and convert it into an array. So this is the fastest way to read something from a file, comma separated file, or any other type of file for that matter. So if you have a file in which you are using the pipe instead of this, if you are using the pipe separation, in that case you specify the delimiter here as the pipe. So this is to say that explode it in a particular format. So if it is some other symbol, you can use it to explode it in any way you want, you can explode it. Okay, so this is one example. So let me go back, and I think I'll go back to the presentation. Let's continue with that. Here is the same thing that is done. After exploding, I take the individual values. Here I'm going to take 1. So 1 will come here, then the name will come here, and then the second name will come here, and then I'm going to print all of them one after the other. Let's go to the next one, and that is the F read. I think I've already talked about it. F read is used to read number of bytes. In this case, it is 1024 bytes. So I want to read, at a time I want to read 1024 bytes, and I'm converting it into new line into BR. Like your printf function, you have fprintf, which this was there even in your C programming language. So you specify the handle, you specify the string, and it's going to print it in that order. Remember, this is not going to print it again. I think all of you are familiar. This will not print into your monitor. It is going to print it into the file. So it's going to print this content into the file. So it's going to read this, isn't that year, month, and day. It's going to convert it into 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day. So this is B. I hope you are already familiar. You can write it to percentage, specify how many characters you want. So if the numbers are less than that, 0 will be padded out. So if somebody has given the value like this, so if the values were given like 14 for this, and say 2 for this, and let's say 18 for this, let me take some value. So how is it going to be printed? Here it's going to come like there is 0 here, so it's going to come 0, 0, 14. Then there is going to be a dash, 0, 2, and there is going to be 18. That 0 is there as a filler. So if the values are less than that, it's going to fill it with the 0. So 2 values were there, 2 numbers, 2 digits were there. Requested or the format is for 4 digit, and if the 4 digit space is left out over here, 2 digits are taken up by the input, and the remaining 2 are filled with the 0. If you have any other symbol, it's going to fill it using the other symbol. I think you have already tried it. I'm not going to try it here with the program. Now, the one that I have shown you is the old way of doing it. In the old way, what you usually do is you go over here, and like a good developer, you open out the file first, you take the handle, you do something with the file, and at the end you close it. So that is old way of doing it. The new way of doing it is a quick approach. So what if you just want to read a file and do something with it? Why to bother about opening a handle, closing a handle, and so on? Why don't you just tell the PHP that I just want to open a file, just open it and give it to me. If you think that that must be the way in which the programming language has to support you, the PHP is supporting you with 2 functions, and the 2 functions are file and file get content. Now here you just say file and specify the name of the file. That's the end of it. It will go, it will open the file, it will read the content, and it will close it for you. So everything it's going to do it. You don't have to say close, read, or anything for that matter. It's just going to go and do it for you. What about the file get content? It's going to do the same thing. It will open the file for you, get the handle for the file, read the content, and then close it. Then what's the difference between file and file get content? The file reads the entire thing into an array. So that is the thing. So it's going to read the entire file into an array where each line in the array will take one value within the array. What about the other one? It will read everything into a single string. Now, so is this a good way of using it? It is good if it is a very small file. The reason is it's going to read everything and it's going to get it into the memory. So what if the file is 200 GB? So very large file. A movie, or maybe not 200 GB, let's say ordinary HD movie, say 2.5 GB. If you try to use this one, it's going to read that 2.5 GB directly into the RAM. So it's going to read it to the RAM, and then onwards you won't get any space for doing anything else. So be careful with it. Try to open only a small file, not a very large file. If you feel that the file is going to be large, then use the other technique, that is slowly going through the individual chunk of a file rather than getting everything into the memory and then running out of memory altogether. So let's see this in action. So I'm going to go over here with the file, and I'm supposed to get an array of it. So how do I go about it? I'm going to go here and I'm going to remark everything up to here. So they are not really required. Let me go here. I can go anywhere. I think I'll go to the bottom side. Here I have remarked, so nothing is there. So I'm going to say my array is